Good morning. Today we're on Radio Sekou, and our guest is Richard Bonte. Richard Bonte is a linguist who studied at the University of Berkeley. He's also a father of two great tennis players, and he's also a writer. I have read several of his books. Richard, today our subject is going to be about tennis and tennis parents.
Hi, Sekou.
I know you have two great kids, and then one time you used to live in France, and you decided to move to U.S. to pursue your kids' tennis dream. Can you school us? Can you tell us about that? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, yeah, sure. And hi to everybody. Thank you for Kate. Yeah, I was living in, we were living in France, and there was a long story how we got to France, but I won't go into that. But I just thought that the Bollettieri Academy, which is a tennis academy in Bradenton, Florida, I thought that would be a great place to train Alessandra, who is my oldest child at the time. And actually, we had thought about three places. We had thought about the Everett Academy on the East Coast. We had thought about, which is another great IMG academy. And we had thought about another fellow, I forget his name now, and on the East Coast as well of Florida. And then we thought about the Bollettieri Academy. We tried all three, and we found out that the Bollettieri Academy thought was the best one to do.
So, to tell the future parents who are interested in coming to America to pursue the tennis dreams of their daughters or son, what would be the advice, or what would be the standard operating procedure to pursue?
Well, first of all, I would urge them to look at their home country's tennis programs too. I mean, France is a very good place to play tennis, and to think about what else the U.S. would contribute. So, in our case, there were other extenuating factors. First of all, I'm American. I'm also French, but I'm mostly American, and so that had a big factor to do it. I'm sort of coming home in that way. So for people though are coming from a foreign country and they've never been to the U.S. or haven't spent that much time, really consider what they have to gain by going to the U.S. and what they have to gain by staying in their home country.
You mentioned the French. I'm very familiar with the French. I used to live there. Tennis originated in France, and can you tell us a little bit, for people who don't know, about the French tennis structures, how the system is organized there?
Well, the French Tennis Federation, the FFT, is very well structured. They have a lot of money for their players, for their good players. Just like the USTA, and every country has its tennis programs. The French one is pretty good. If you notice all the big tournaments, they have a lot of people in the top 100 and the top groups in the world. There's always a lot of French tennis players. They haven't always gone to, just with a few exceptions, they haven't gone to number one in the world, the players, but they've often been very good. How it works is this. You have 4 divisions. You have, let's go from the bottom. From the bottom, you have the 4th division and non-ranked players, and then very low-ranked players. Then you have a 3rd division, which has a lot of club players in it. And that goes up to a ranking which we call, which is called 15, up to 15. And I can explain what those numbers are later if you want me to, Sekou. And then you have a 2nd division. These are pretty good players. These are college players and college player material. And that goes up to what they call minus 15. And after that, you have the top 50 of France, which are called the numbered players, the numérotés, and these go from 1 to 50. Women and men, by the way.
Good, yes. Let's talk about Alexandra. I know Alexandra is a great player. There's a book reading about her. She went to University of South Florida at Division I tennis. Let's talk about Alexandra training. How did she start it? How she, in France and moving to U.S. or pursued tennis at University of South Florida. Let's talk about Alexandra.
Yeah, she, well, the idea with her was when she was very young, I asked a tennis coach in France, and this is before we'd moved back to the US in 2005, where we were there 2005 to 2008 at the Bollettieri Academy with her. The little one, the younger player, was very young. He didn't play. But anyway, she, let's see, we were thinking about her going pro. And if not, well, then she'd be a college player. So we weren't sure how good she was going to be and how she was going to develop. And I remember a French coach told me, he said, look, if you want to make a pro out of her, then she can be a pro by the age of 12, but it might damage your father-daughter relationships because you have to be very tough on her and really work her hard and put her with the best people and everything. So I said, no, I don't want that. But anyway, when we took her to Bollettieri, we thought, well, we'll see how good she is. And most people come out of the Bollettieri Academy, go to college, and are good college players. A few, cream of the crop, go on to become pros. So it was sort of like that. By the time I think she was 16, I realized that she was going to be a good college player if she wanted to do that.
Great. So your relationship with Alessandra is still good from my point of view, because that's
yeah, it's off and on. It's off and on. Let's put it this way: we don't talk too much about tennis. As soon as we talk about tennis, we start to fight.
How about you have a great son I had a chance to see, and then who happened to play a lot of my tournament here in Florida. Maximilian, great, talented. How about we talk a little bit about Max also?
Okay. Well, after leaving Florida in 2008, we went back to France, and then when Max turned about the same age as Alessandra, I guess he was around 12 then. We thought, let's try it again. Let's go back. We still had a place there we were renting, and so we thought, well, you can go back, live in that place rather than rent it, and we tried again. The only thing was, so that's sort of what we did, and so back in 2014, we came back to Florida, and we started Max on the program. Max actually did very, very well, especially the first year. Then after 1 year there, he had this Osgood-Schlatter problem, which is a knee problem, and his knees would hurt after running, and it's a very common thing in sports. I don't know if your son, who plays very well, ever had that, but when they're growing and they're around 12, 13, 14, they often get that. And he had that, and that really, really took him back. I mean, he had that for off and on for 2 years. So the injuries were a big problem for him.
Okay. Talking about injuries, I was reading a book, the news on in the U.S. about a great deal of kids at a very early age getting injured because of the excessive exposure to sports or training. Is any way you can elaborate a little bit on that? I mean, we know football in America, baseball, basketball, tennis. I mean, we're gonna maybe stay on tennis side. What do you think? Because I know you asked me this question before, and I have my opinions. Then we can all work on this.
Sure. Well, I think one of the big problems of tennis players in the States is playing on the hard court. So all college programs are hard court based, and if you look at it, they make the joke like in California, the players still playing in their 50s all have knee pads and shoulder pads and all sorts of things, whereas the players playing in the, not shoulder pads, I'm sorry, knee pads, whereas the knee braces rather, whereas the players who play in the East Coast that play on the clay courts don't have those knee braces, and they seem to be in better shape. Hard courts are just terrible on the body. In addition, I think they didn't have really the best type of physical training at IMG, even though they have all the gyms and everything. You don't need lots of big weights for tennis players. You need to make sure they have strong shoulders, good joints, knees, hips, elbows, shoulders. These things have to be, really, really stretched out and strong, and that's what you need in tennis. You don't need to have huge football player type bodies to play tennis.
Now we're talking about tennis and parenting. We cannot forget about your wife's participation in this, and also the economy part of it, the financing part of it. I'm a tennis coach who raises tennis players also. But
very good ones too.
You're coming from different positions. Money-wise, for somebody who has a dream like a Richard to come to America to pursue their children's dreams, what would be the advice?
Well, money is a very big deal because, as you probably know, the IMG Academy is extremely expensive. It's really a lot of money. So you have to make sure you have enough money. But a lot of these people who do that do have enough money. Otherwise, their kids wouldn't be in programs like that. They would be, only the best would come from another country, and only the ones supported by their country's federations or tennis federations would send them. Other than that, if your child is really, really good, like one of the top in his country or her country, then maybe they can get a scholarship to like a place like the Bollettieri Academy. I don't see any other way around it except to pay. I wish I knew a better way, but unless you're like you, you're a tennis professional and you raise the kids, you can do it yourself. I mean, I was just a good club player, but I wasn't a tennis professional who knows all the tricks and could do all of that. I could only do a certain amount. I could play with them, and I had time for them, which is already a lot. But I think you have to be a tennis pro. I think I'm going all over the place. I'm not sure what the original question was.
You're doing good with it, Richard.
All right.
So
thank you.
After so many years as a tennis parent, you live in many places. What have you learned? What have you learned? If you have to start over, what would you do differently?
Well, I hate to say it, but I probably would have stayed for tennis only. Okay, we're not talking about the other factors, but I probably would have stayed in France. In both cases, I wouldn't have uprooted the children's education. Since they were in bilingual programs in France, their English would have been fine. I probably, for tennis only, I would have not done what I did, because I think it's a bit of a shock to the system. But the main thing is, and I'm talking only tennis here, I'm not talking schooling. Well, I am talking schooling in the sense that they would have gotten a good tennis school academic education in France, but they also wouldn't have been uprooted from their friends, and I think they would have probably come to the same point, because France has a good program. Now, if you're living in a country where the tennis program is not very good, then and you were really gung ho, and the kid is really gung ho on doing it, then I would listen to the kid. And that's the other thing. I think had I done this all over again, I probably would have listened more to the kids and really not push them as much as I did, because a lot of it came from me. I always felt that you have to guide a child, and you guide the way they think until they're 18. But I think we have to listen more to the kid and really not listen so much to what they say, but to observe what they do. And if you see a kid that's, wants to go out and is always asking for lessons, is always asking to play, that's one thing. If you see